Welcome to this reading for the collective for the solar eclipse taking place on the 2nd or 3rd of October 2024, depending on what part of the world you reside in. The energy of this eclipse is Libran in nature, and the focus of this energy will be on the polarities that we have been experiencing based on the north and south node of the moon being in Libra south node and Aries north node. What we're looking at this time is how we show up in relationship, how we have held ourselves back from relationship in our process of individuation, in doing all of our spiritual inner work, and how we have evolved and changed, and how we're ready to move beyond the chrysalis phase of this change into a graduation point of being able to show up in our experiences of the world as a more enlightened, more balanced, fairer, kinder, more reciprocal version of ourselves. In meditating on the energy for our collective prior to this reading, I envisioned cards, and the energy is reflected in the spread that you see in front of you. I will clarify these once we have gone over how they play out in our experience. Keep in mind, too, that Venus is currently in Scorpio, and this energy also encourages us to reinvigorate our sense of relationship with the type of true love, true compassion, true fire, true eternity that can build relationships of abundance, passion, and expansion. These are the hopeful, liberated experiences that we can offer ourselves as we move through this energy. Also, keep in mind that we are moving towards Pluto turning direct, still in Capricorn, of course, and continuing to move through those last minutes of Capricorn as we complete our divinely perfecting experience of how we show up in society, who we are by the rules of society, who we are by the rules that we project upon ourselves in the reality that we create, and how this has perhaps also kept us from a healthy relationship dynamic in our lives. Peripherally, it would be important to also emphasize that at this time, you may be in need of reassessing your relationships with certain people. We have to make room for the new to come in. And in order to do so, this can often require of us to reassess the relationships that we have given perhaps either too much space to or too much importance to for too long. And this eclipse energy will inevitably be bringing these unfulfilling dynamics to a close, should that be your own will and desire. Of course, we all have resistance, we all have attachments, we all have false mirrors, and our projections can often keep us in fear about making space, about leaving things behind. Of course, we don't necessarily, once we have developed healthy boundaries for ourselves, need to create dramatic or explosive dynamics in our lives as we clear space. We can navigate these necessary adjustments with diplomacy, with kindness, and with love. And perhaps that's also another dynamic of the lessons that we have been learning as we've moved towards the Aries lunar north node experience. What is individuation and what does it serve, if not to bring us closer to loving ways of negotiating our life? Where we begin is with the Five of Swords. Our mindset has been very much caught in these egoic struggles of the need to be right. Of course, we always find ourselves in the position to contemplate the value of being right. Why is it important for us to feel that we are right as opposed to being in harmony? And these empty victories that we may give ourselves by establishing a sense of isolation in our quest to be right will not have served the Libran dynamic. They will have put us out of balance. They will have created a chasm of discontentment, of alienation, of separateness that keeps us from finding our joy, that leads us into confusion. We face in this eclipse energy some type of deeper evolutionary soul level decision about how we choose to empower ourselves going forth. How small do we need to play? Because this person here is, in fact, quite small, despite the victory they feel that they have achieved. Our life becomes very, very small the more isolated we become, the more we feel that we are not mirrored in our environments, in our relationships, in our experiences. So, where have you been holding yourself back from having authentic experiences in your life? And where have you been finding yourself in a state of indecision, a state of perhaps over prolonged contemplation, or making very cut and dry decisions in your life about where you take yourself next? Here we see the new moon, and as you can see, the waters in this card are not particularly disturbed. So the subconscious mind is actually quite calm and perceptive. Perhaps even the implication of the blindfold, where there are no constraints on the person in the Two of Swords, imply that this was a voluntary hangman like period of contemplation, of an inner journey. But there is this deep sense of the new needing to come in at this time. And so it's time to pick your sword. These are two truths. If you see here, he carries two swords as well. The third sword in his other hand, of course, represents the heartache of the Three of Swords. This is what he's left with as a result of his false sense of superiority and victory in his isolation. All this person needs to do is drop one of these swords. But perhaps what's causing this person to feel this fear is there's a process of knowingness about this evolutionary path. This is not the first time that this person has found themselves at this crossroads in life, and therefore they anticipate the difficulty of the dark night of the soul. But as the rather cliched expression goes, it's always darkest before the dawn. And we see dawn on the horizon here. This person has already experienced all of these difficult philosophical conclusions that have isolated him, that have made him feel burdened, unable to move. And as we know, the symbolism of his secret knowingness implies that he has the knowledge of the infinite loop of reinvention, of rebirth. So we're coming into this with this eclipse energy. All of this here is very much the density of the eclipse energy. Now, what is causing this? Now, we have the Six of Cups here, which is always an indication of an inner child dynamic. The inner child came with the overriding influence of the King of Swords. In this case, a strong presence of Archangel Michael presiding over this reading, but also coming in with the perhaps severity of the need to use this sort of truth to cut out the false attachments to the beliefs that the inner child has allowed to prevail to the detriment, looping back to this issue here with the indecision. What's nice about this reading is that as we see that as we move through this energy, we move from swords through the transference and the transformation and authority of Archangel Michael into cup energy, emotional energy, and moving beyond this with the Eight of Cups. So the natural flow is that in purifying our life prism so that it isn't directed by our disturbances, our false mirrors through our experiences of trauma, of how we experience childhood. Also, here, the idea of this being our older self, who we've become, gifting something to the inner child. Perhaps that's something of the work that we need to do in our meditations around this eclipse. As it is central to our reading, it would indicate that inner child work is of the utmost importance at this time, and we need to embrace our confused inner child. We need to understand that our inner child needs us to tap into our higher self, our evolved self, to lead the inner child, to integrate the inner child in order to know how we can move beyond these emotional experiences that have not satisfied us in order to go in pursuit. As you can see, there is an eclipse on the Eight of Cups card. He doesn't know where he's headed. Again, apologies if I'm using male pronouns. I just go by how they're represented on the Rider-Waite deck. But wherever he's headed, it's to new peaks. In order to embrace the bravery, in order to embody the bravery required to make this decision to move beyond what we already have acquired in our life, to go for something bigger, there's a knowingness, a faith that there is something else. And this eclipse is heightening this awareness and perhaps even a certain amount of restlessness. So make sure you practice lots of self-care as you may find yourself with a heightened nervous system electricity to channel. That's why meditation is extremely important at this time, and surrendering to your higher power and tapping into your higher self so that you are in your most balanced perspective. This is clearly indicated with the Hermit and the Temperance energy here. It's important to also know that at the time of the eclipse, which will be at 10 degrees of Libra, Black Moon Lilith will also be at 10 degrees of Libra, and Mercury will be at 10 degrees or thereabouts. And the fact that they are all attuned with each other means that we're dealing with our fears of the unknown, as well as our way of formulating our thoughts and communicating our thoughts even to ourselves about where it is that we want to evolve to. Only by going inwards, only by understanding the need to be in balance, to be in our emotional process, in celebration, even of our emotional process, of the full scope of our emotions. And this temperance energy brings to mind the idea of where we find ourselves in fear, where our emotions bring up any form of trepidation, any form of anticipation, any form of angst around how we surrender or embrace our future, has to be entirely surrendered to this meditative inner process. In eclipses, we are very prone to either being persuaded by those around us through false information or receiving information from beyond the veil. So I would say it's a good time to take advantage of that, to get the answers that you're looking for, because they come with the Wheel of Fortune, some kind of radical shift, which feels very much like a strong lightening of our load when we let go and we move away from what has been holding us back. And goodness knows there is a great deal that has been holding us all back because there's so much collective fear. There's so much of a sense of isolation, of being swallowed up in total anonymity in a world gone completely insane, obsessed with image, distortion, a real rotting at the core of all of the institutions and values that we have upheld for so long, causes a extreme sense of not being mirrored, not seeing ourselves in our environments, in our relationships. So all of this is intertwined in this Libran energy. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to walk away from everything, obviously. What it means is that we have to show up differently in the things that we want to hold on to, the things that make sense for us to hold on to. But once we lighten our load, we move into the chariot energy. And the chariot, in order for the chariot to function, moving us forward, our higher self and our terrestrial self, our male and our female dynamics have to, which I would also say is our higher self and our inner child, they have to merge through this temperance process. It's about where we've seen duality in ourselves, in the world around us. It is now our responsibility to bring those into a singular form, whatever that means to you. Just for some clarity, I'm going to take some extra cards to see if Spirit and our guides have anything extra to tell us. Is there anything that we can learn through another card or two on the sword energy? Well, the Eight of Swords. So, of course, that makes perfect sense that we are looking at our insecurities. All of this is fed by our insecurities, of course. As you can see here, the insecurity is not so much about a state of permanence or a condemnation. This is the chrysalis hanging from the one sword of truth, while all of these others are sort of poised to destroy. But this is life that resides within us. That's our force of the universe that exists within us that will prevail no matter what. So there's a strong sense of faith in this. And of course, what is the Libran resolution of the Aries energy, of the insecurity, of the feeling not good enough, of the self-betrayal? It is faith and surrender to a higher power, trusting the universe, trusting the path. In other words, in order to receive just the one sword, all this person has to do is put one sword down. That is an act of faith. Can we get a clarifier on what it is that in our emotional cup energy we need to, or we would benefit from letting go of. Of course, remembering that the Temperance card also involves two cups, the two cups that this person is moving towards because he wants his 10 of cups. So I guess that was the answer as an insight that no, we don't need another card on that. I would love to get a card to clarify the Wheel of Fortune and the Chariot. I feel pretty reluctant. It's like the experience has to be had in order for that to come to light. We're just saying to move on to our Spirit Animal Oracle card. What Spirit Animal Oracle card will serve us with a message for this eclipse, please? Horse Spirit, freedom is yours. Number 33. When Horse Spirit appears, you are gifted with the spirit of movement and freedom. It is a time for travel and adventure, whether that means a trip somewhere or taking a different type of journey, one of freedom of choice. Horse Spirit reminds you that no matter the circumstances, you have free will and choices that can take you far away to a better place, a better situation, a better state of being. For there is no one but you to reign in your will, to make a different decision. You are capable of making powerful choices that will affect you for a long time to come. Horses are social animals and known to be a friend to mankind, willing to carry us forward when we need it. Horse Spirit reminds you that help will be available to you whenever you need it, and companions will be by your side wherever you choose to go, whatever direction you choose to travel. Life is an adventure, and Horse Spirit wants you to know that whatever choices you make, you have the Great Spirit within, invisible, yet holding you up and always walking by your side. Wow, that definitely covers that Two of Swords energy, right? I'm going to take a soul journey card for us. Spirit, what is our soul journey indication for this eclipse? What energy, what insight can you share that we haven't already established? Love. I commit to the practice of seeing the good in all things. And finally, an angel guide message for the eclipse. Hmm. Romance and connection and sacred plan. I think that these are all pretty self explanatory. As I say, this is about mirrors, this is about relationship, not necessarily about romance. One of the things that comes to mind is, what is love to you? Very often we confuse love with all kinds of things that were put upon us as conditions, either in our childhood or by our first relationships, or the relationships in our lives that have traumatized us, no matter which way we look at it. And often we make the mistake of confusing loyalty with love. Not to say that loyalty can't be a part of love, but loyalty can also be a condition that functions as a substitute for love, that can be a device of control, of obligation, of betrayal of the self. So, all things to be contemplated as we move through this energy. I do hope that this reading has given a little bit of insight into the types of energies that we are navigating and how we can best show up to evolve into our highest versions of ourselves through this energetic transformation. I wish you well as you experience this energy, and I will be back very soon with more information for us. Thank you.